The sky over Leyte Gulf is boiling. October 20th, 1944. The Pacific sun burns white-hot through smoke and tracer fire. Below, the sea glitters like shattered glass, full of burning aircraft. And somewhere up there, a single F-6F Hellcat is climbing too fast for physics to forgive. Ensign Eddie Moran knows this climb will kill him. But 6 Zeros are on his tail, and his guns, both wings, just jammed. So he does the only thing left. He yanks the stick full back and loops the entire plane, nose up, belly over, straight into the sun. Jesus, he's looping. He's lost it, someone yells over the radio. No answer. Inside the cockpit, Eddie's teeth grit so hard they squeal. The engine howls at redline. He feels the weight of 6 Gs pressing his chest into his seat. Fuel sloshes. The horizon vanishes. Then, silence. The loop peaks. The Zeros overshoot. From this moment on, the next 15 seconds will change everything. Because this isn't suicide. It's strategy. A rule-breaking stunt born from months of quiet obsession, the kind of madness that turns the word crazy into survival. Before that loop, nobody believed in miracles like that. They believed in manuals, and those manuals were killing our pilots. All through 1944, the US Navy's Hellcats were dominating the Pacific in the numbers column, but only just. For every Japanese pilot shot down, another American was spinning into the ocean. Not because they were cowards, because their machines were lying to them. The Hellcat was powerful, fast, and tough, but it carried a curse. Weight. 6 tons of metal with a nose heavy as gilt, and an engine so torqued it could flip you upside down if you touched the stick wrong. Every new pilot was told, never climb steep, never loop low, ever. Those were the commandments. Break them, and the ocean becomes your grave. But orders don't stop physics. The same torque that made the Hellcat a climber also made it stall like a brick, and once it stalled, it didn't glide. It dropped. Lieutenant Red Jackson learned that the hard way. He was chasing a Zero over Luzon, pulled up just a little too hard, and the engine coughed, wings locked, and he fell from 3,000 feet. The radio crackled with his last scream. "Can't pull!" Static. They found only an oil slick. Weeks later, Ensign Charlie Finch tried to climb out of a dive near Rabaul. The torque kicked him into an unrecoverable roll. Ground crew said the smell of burning fuel drifted for miles that day. In October alone, 34 pilots died that way. Accidents, not combat. The brass called it attrition, but for the men watching their friends drop like stones, it was murder by doctrine. Eddie Moran watched, too. He wasn't a hotshot, not even close, just a kid from a dairy farm outside San Diego who barely scraped through flight school. They said he was too quiet, too twitchy on the stick. His call sign, whispered, half mocking, was Flip. Eddie didn't care. He wasn't chasing medals. He just wanted his crew to live long enough to go home. He'd seen too many empty bunks, too many folded flags, and he kept asking himself, why do the Japanese always outturn us? Why do we keep dying the same way? He started watching gun camera footage, Zeros looping tight around Hellcats. The American planes always breaking away, never daring to follow. And one night in the ready room, Eddie noticed something. When a Zero dove after a climbing target, if the American went vertical too fast, the Zero's lighter frame made it overshoot. For a split second, it was exposed underneath, right in the Hellcat's gun sight. If only the pilot could hold the loop without stalling. But the manuals said that was impossible, so he decided to test it himself. The carrier USS Princeton, August 1944. Midnight. red safety lights washing the deck. Eddie kneels beside his plane, flashlight in his teeth, chalk marking the trim tab settings on the elevator. He loosens the resistance, adds a quarter-turn tension to the control linkage, just enough to stop the snap stall that killed Red Jackson. His mechanic, Shorty, watches pale. "Sir, if the skipper catches you, we're both out on our asses." Eddie grins, a dry, nervous grin. "Then you better not tell the skipper." He flies at dawn. No combat, just a routine test flight. From the deck camera, it looks normal until the last 30 seconds. The Hellcat dives, then, too low, too fast, snaps vertical. Inside the cockpit, sweat drips off Eddie's chin. The plane rattles like a dying engine block. He counts under his breath. 1, 2, 3. The altimeter spins. The G-force feels like a sledgehammer to his ribs. And then, he clears the loop, just barely. The plane's tail grazes the airwick. He recovers 300 feet above the sea. Back on deck, Shorty runs out screaming, "You trying to make me piss my pants, sir?" Eddie laughs, but his hands are shaking so bad he drops his helmet. That night, he draws it all out. Radius, speed, timing. Writes in pencil. 3.4 seconds at 180 knots. Half loop. Reverse torque. And at the bottom, crazy, but it works. For the next month, he practices at dawn, hiding it behind engine checks. Every loop brings him closer to perfect timing. Every loop closer to being court-martialed. Because to the Navy, breaking procedure was worse than dying by it. One morning, the skipper himself spots the maneuver through binoculars. He storms the hangar before Eddie even lands. "You ever pull that stunt again, Moran, I'll ground you until Tokyo surrenders. You hear me?" Eddie just nods, breathing hard, flight suit soaked through with sweat. He wants to shout back, "Sir, it works!" But he doesn't, because proving it means betting his life for real, in combat. That chance comes 3 weeks later, October 20th, Leyte Gulf, the day of the invasion. Eddie's squadron launches before sunrise, 12 Hellcats escorting torpedo bombers toward the beachhead. Clouds, low and heavy. Radio static, thick as soup. At 0900, radar calls. "Bandits, Angels 15, closing fast." Zeros. A full squadron, maybe more. The fight is instant chaos. Tracer fire slicing the air like red rain. Explosions blooming where the bombers should be. Eddie dives, fires a burst, clips 10's wing, but another slides onto his 6. "Flip. You've got 2 coming in hard. Break left." He pulls hard. The plane groans. 10 overshoots. Another stays tight. He squeezes the trigger. Click, click. Nothing. Guns jammed. Now it's just him and the sky. 6 Zeros circling in. No ammo. No help. The manual says, "Run for the deck." But Eddie hears Red Jackson's scream in his head. He tightens the straps, glances once at the photo taped to his dash. His crew, grinning in the sun. And then, he yanks the stick full back. The Hellcat screams upward. The Zeros follow. Below, the clouds swirl like white fire. From the carrier, they watch him vanish into the sun. And someone whispers over the radio, "He's looping again. That crazy bastard's looping again." The sun blinds him as the world flips over. For one long second, Eddie Moran is upside down, staring at the sea far below through the Hellcat's canopy. His stomach rises into his throat. The engine howls like a dying animal. Oil sprays from a loose seal and streaks across the glass. He's losing speed. If he stalls now, he'll drop like a stone. Come on. Come on. He slams the throttle forward, muscles shaking from G-force. The nose dips slightly. He feels the tail shudder. Below, the 6 Zeros streak past, overshooting exactly as he'd guessed. Their pilots think he's dead. Eddie inverts, dives straight through their formation. Bullets flash past, tracer lines crossing like lightning. For the first time all morning, he's the one chasing. His guns finally click free. A short burst spits fire. The nearest Zero explodes in a white flash. Another spins out of control, smoke spiraling. The radio crackles. Holy hell, Flip did it! He looped over him! The loop that should have killed him just saved his life. And for 15 more seconds, it saves everyone else's too. Because the remaining Zeros panic. They break formation, scattering wide, terrified of the madman who just defied physics. Eddie levels off at 4,000 feet, breathing so hard he almost throws up. He's alive, and the sky, for the first time, feels like it belongs to him. After the battle, the deck feels eerily quiet. No cheers, no debrief, just exhaustion. Eddie climbs out of the cockpit, legs shaking. Shorty runs up, eyes wide. You actually pulled it, didn't you? Eddie nods. Yeah, and it worked. Word spreads fast through the squadron. The guys start calling it the crazy loop. They replay it in the ready room like ghost stories, a suicide move that somehow brought a man home. But the official report doesn't mention his name. It just says, enemy aircraft destroyed during evasive maneuver. Because the maneuver didn't exist, not in the Navy's book. Over the next weeks, pilots start trying it, quietly, cautiously. A loop here, a half roll there. They whisper Eddie's notes among themselves, hand-sketched diagrams on coffee-stained paper. One pilot writes, 180 knots minimum or you're fish bait. Another scribbles, if you black out, pray the angels like company. They perfect it piece by piece. Some call it the flip roll, others the Moran maneuver. Most just call it what it feels like, the death wish. By November, it's spreading across the fleet. Pilots who used to get shredded in climbs now pull tight loops and come out on top. For the first time in months, the kill ratios start to flip from 1-to-1 to almost 3-to-1 in some squadrons. Even Japanese radio intercepts begin to mention it. Their reports describe American planes climbing vertically and reappearing inverted. A Zero ace is quoted saying, they fly like madmen now, but still no credit. No mention in the manuals, because officially, the maneuver doesn't exist. Eddie doesn't care. He just keeps flying. Late November, the Battle of Mindoro. Eddie's group is flying escort for bombers again. Same pattern, same threat. Only this time everyone's waiting for a fight. Bandits, 12 o'clock high! 5 Zeros diving from the sun. They come in tight, formation perfect. Eddie feels his pulse spike. Shorty, check my flaps, we're gonna need 'em. Radio chatter. Hellcat 2, break left. Copy. Flip, you see 'em? Yeah, let's dance. He rolls, climbs. A perfect bait. 2 Zeros take it. They follow him straight up. The first one fires too early, tracers ripping empty sky. Eddie counts again under his breath. 1, 2, 3. Pulls hard. The world folds into a blur of blue and smoke. Gravity crushes his chest. He feels his vision tunneling, black creeping at the edges. Then, at the apex, cut throttle, roll inverted. The Zeros overshoot, spinning past. He dives behind them, squeezes the trigger, both wings spitting lead. One explodes in orange flame. The second, riddled, disintegrates mid-roll. Good kill, someone yells. But Eddie's not smiling. His hands are trembling again, because he knows one slip, one heartbeat too late, and he'd have joined Red Jackson in the sea. After the mission, the skipper finally calls him in. He's expecting a reprimand. Instead, the old man just stares at him across the map table. "You know, Moran, I should write you up for that stunt." "Yes, sir. But damned if it didn't work." Pause. "Keep doing what you're doing. Just don't tell me about it." Eddie nods, trying not to grin. That night, the squadron drinks quietly in the mess hall. Somebody sketches a Hellcat looping over a 0 on the blackboard, chalk dust drifting through the air. Underneath, they write, "Crazy Loop Club." Nobody laughs. Nobody toasts. They just sit there. A dozen tired men who've seen death too close, each one realizing this tiny act of defiance might actually be keeping them alive. By January, the maneuver becomes a rumor even outside the Navy. War correspondents hear pilots mention it. A single line appears in a stateside newspaper. "Carrier pilots develop new evasive loop to counter Japanese tactics." No names, no details. Just one grainy photo of a Hellcat frozen mid-climb, blurred motion, sunlight haloing its wings. In the enemy camps, the story warps. Japanese flyers begin calling it the American suicide turn. Some refuse to chase the loopers entirely. Their kill efficiency drops by nearly half that month. For the first time in the war, the Imperial pilots feel hunted. And Eddie? He keeps a small notebook. Inside, the pages are smudged with grease and sweat. He writes, "Loop, 3.4 seconds, 180 knots minimum. Fear is normal. Don't think. Feel the weight." Between lines, he sketches arcs, arrows, and timing marks. It looks more like a prayer than a flight plan. He doesn't know it yet, but those scribbles will live on long after he's gone. Mechanics will find it decades later tucked inside his old footlocker. The cover reads only one word in pencil: survival. By early 1945, the Pacific skies look different. Hellcats rule the air. Japanese formations break apart the moment an American climbs vertical. In just 4 months, US pilots go from surviving to dominating. And it all began with one kid who wasn't supposed to make it. Eddie doesn't get a medal. He doesn't even get a mention in dispatches. But he gets something better. Every time another Hellcat loops into the sun, he knows his ghosts are safe. On the carrier deck one evening, Eddie leans against the railing, cigarette glowing faintly in the wind. Shorty joins him. "You ever gonna tell him how you figured it out?" Eddie shakes his head. "Nah, they wouldn't believe me anyway." Shorty chuckles. "They already don't." They both laugh, quiet and tired, the kind of laugh men share when they've survived too much. Behind them, the ocean catches the last light of the day, a long orange line stretching toward home. The war ends almost as suddenly as it began. Summer, 1945. Carrier horns echo across a glassy Pacific. Men throw their caps, hug strangers, cry without shame. But Eddie Moran just stands at the edge of the deck, watching the horizon. He's flown 47 missions, seen more friends vanish into smoke than he'll ever admit. Now, the sky that once tried to kill him looks empty. When the ship docks at San Diego, he steps onto dry land for the first time in 2 years. No parade, no band, just the hot smell of fuel, salt, and asphalt. A mechanic from another squadron spots him, says, "You're Flip Moran, right? The loop guy?" Eddie laughs. "That's what they tell me." And then he's gone, melting back into the crowd like a man who never wanted to be remembered in the first place. Officially, his name never appears in Navy records again. There's no line in the manuals, no chapter titled The Moran Maneuver. Because in wartime bureaucracy, rule breakers don't get credit. They get erased. But word spreads anyway. Instructors whisper it at flight schools. When you've got nothing left, there's one move that might save you. You didn't hear it from me. And then they sketch a simple arc on the chalkboard, a loop that seems suicidal, and a few old-timers smile like they've just seen a ghost. Eddie goes home to California. He buys a small field outside Fresno, turns it into a crop dusting strip. The neighbors see him flying low over the rows at dawn, banking too sharp, looping too close to the ground. They shake their heads. "Crazy as ever," they say. He just grins. To him, it's freedom. The sky without orders, the loop without fear. Every once in a while, a young pilot stops by looking for work or advice. Eddie fixes their trim tabs, adjusts their flaps, shows them how to feel the air, not fight it. He never says the word loop, but when they watch him fly, they understand anyway. In 1957, one of those kids, a Navy reservist, writes to him from Pensacola. "Sir," the letter says, "they're teaching a version of your move now. They call it a vertical reversal." Eddie reads it twice, then sets it down on the kitchen table. He smiles softly. So the secret's out, but the name's gone, and somehow that feels right. He lives a long, quiet life, keeps flying, keeps fixing, never brags. To most, he's just the old pilot in town who smells of oil and coffee, who can rebuild a carburetor faster than anyone. He marries late, no kids, just a little dog that rides beside him in the cockpit. In 1973, his heart gives out mid-flight over a field of golden wheat. Witnesses say the plane dipped low, pulled a half loop, then glided down perfect and soft. Engine still humming. Like muscle memory, his finals salute to the sky that once nearly killed him. When they open his locker at the hangar, they find that old notebook. Pages yellow, corners burnt by sun. On the cover, one word: survival. Inside, the last line reads, "Never fly scared. Scared pilots die." The years roll on. Technology changes. Jets, missiles, radar, computers. But deep inside Navy archives, a single test film from 1944 still exists. Black and white, grainy, barely a minute long. A Hellcat climbing into sunlight, the camera operator muttering, "He's looping again." Then the frame tilts. The blur of wings, the glint of the Pacific below. And it freezes. Someone, decades later, will study that film and label it, "Unknown pilot performs non-standard recovery maneuver. Outcome: survived." They never write his name, but you can feel it, that same stubborn heartbeat under the static. There's a story pilots tell even now, usually in dim bars after too many drinks. They'll say, "There was this kid in the war. Everyone said he was nuts, but he figured out something about gravity." And they'll draw a small circle on her napkin, the way Eddie used to, and smile. Because they know that in war, sometimes the difference between genius and suicide is about 3 seconds, and one terrified man who refuses to quit. Eddie Moran never asked for fame. He just wanted his friends to make it home. And that's the thing. Most of them did. His move, whispered from pilot to pilot, gave them that chance. The world will never build him a statue, but maybe that's fitting. Because heroes like Eddie don't need marble. They live in motion, in the sky itself. Every time a pilot pulls up too steep, feels the wings shudder and refuses to panic, a piece of him still flies. There's a rumor, unconfirmed, that during Vietnam, one American pilot escaping a MiG pulled a near-vertical loop under fire. He survived. His report read simply, "Used non-standard climb technique. Worked." When someone asked where he'd learned it, he said, "My granddad flew Hellcats. Told me a story once about a guy they called Flip. That's how legends live. Not in books, but in borrowed courage." Today, you can walk into the Naval Aviation Museum in Pensacola and find an old F-6F Hellcat sitting under a skylight. The plaque doesn't mention Eddie Moran, but if you look close, you'll see a faint scratch carved into the metal near the tail. A small circle with an arrow looping over it. Mechanics think it's just a maintenance mark. But maybe it's something more. Maybe 70 years later, the kid from San Diego is still showing the next generation how to cheat death. And so we end where we began, with that climb into the sun. A move everyone called crazy. A rule everyone swore you couldn't break. And one man, sitting in a roaring cockpit, whispering to himself. Crazy, but it works. If this story hit you the way it hit us, tap like so more people hear it. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Our audience runs from small-town mechanics to history teachers. And make sure you're subscribed so these names don't disappear.